I'm here at the Young Center for the Performing Arts with Mike Ross, one of the stars of High Life, now playing as part of the Soulpepper winter season. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about High Life and your character, Billy.
Billy, okay, well, High Life is a play written by MacDougall, Canadian play that was a really big hit as of maybe, 12 years ago now, maybe a little bit more than that. And I play Billy, one of a team of four that are attempting to rip off a bank in order to support their morphine habit and addiction. The guy I play, Billy, is kind of the odd man out. He is recruited inside of a group of three guys that know each other really well. They don't necessarily like each other, but they are very familiar with each other. There's a specific task within the heist, we'll call it, that needs to be done that involves a young person who is able to have a normal, if not interesting, conversation with a bank teller in order to make this part of the heist succeed. And so I'm recruited by the guy that is putting this whole thing together. That character's name is Dick, and Dick has brought me into this. I have an instant animosity with Dick's closest friend and sort of compadre in the thing, Bug, and so the game becomes, how long is this thing going to last before it blows up, and will they get the job done before the thing blows up? And I think that's kind of the thrust of the play, is how long can they stave off what'll eventually be a cancerous explosion amongst these four guys. How long can they stave it off long enough to get the job done?
High Life's characters are pretty rough around the edges, and for the most part, with the exception of your character, all career criminals. Do you, as an actor, approach your character in such a way that you attempt to make it more, or that you make it attempt to make your character more empathetic, either to yourself or the audience?
Empathetic, to make my character empathetic. No, that's not really my. I mean, I think the task of any actor is to get inside the brain of the character and figure out why it is they're doing what they're doing, and why they, more importantly, believe in what they're doing. So my character, you may not think is a good guy. You may think he's the bad guy in the play. I can't see him that way. I have to see him as trying to get something that he needs, and he's using a certain tact to get that thing, and we've all in our lives tried to get certain things in the wrong way, and we don't realize it until afterwards. This guy, he's kind of the same. But from the standpoint of playing this thing, playing the character, and playing the scenes in the show, I'm not thinking of myself as bad. I'm not thinking of myself as trying to get people to feel empathy for me, or my character feeling empathy for anyone else. I'm just trying to get what I need to survive, and I'll do whatever it takes to get that. And and I think he represents. I think all the characters represent this, a survival of the fittest. They all feel as though they will do what they need to do to survive, and there's nothing that they won't do. And he is definitely one of those guys, and so whatever it takes. And so that's what I do when I put it together. I think, what is it? What is he after? This is what he wants, and in most cases, it's just morphine. He's an addict, and everybody has had that sort of connection to something that they want a little bit too much. We've all had it, and that's his thing, is morphine, and it's all these guys. And morphine's a powerful drug, and so when I'm looking at the thing, and Stu Hughes, the director, is helping me break things down, if that's what it's all about, then I kind of know the same game I'm playing all the way through. I may be trying to seduce you in order to get that thing, but that's what I'm after. And if that comes across as empathy or something, then that's what the playwright did, and not so much the actor.
Billy's got I think the only monologue in the entire play, and it's a long one, and it's part of the heist, and again, without giving anything away, but it's also very much outside of his kind of modus operandi for the rest of the show. At the same time, it comes off as really earnest and almost wistful. Do you see that as like a little window of truth of what Billy wants and wishes that he could be, or is he just doing what he needs to do and doing it really well?
I think he gets lost in this particular monologue. I think you put it that well. I think he suddenly falls into a version of himself that maybe he could have been if he hadn't been taken over by this addiction, or if he had had better parents or a better life somehow. The woman that he's talking to, this bank teller, her name is Alma, brings something out in him, a truth for whatever reason that this happens. I think I could go on and on about where this guy's at this moment, but I think he knows that he's at the precipice of something in his life. He's about to. Things are going to go one way or the other for him, and I think deep in his subconscious he knows that. And so when you're at a moment like that, I think, and you're in that place in your life, you are prone to having an intensely meaningful moment with maybe somebody who would be the least suspecting person, and that's the thing that brings the real you out of you for just a split second. And so I think there is some of that in there. I think he I think he's definitely looking at himself almost like in a mirror.
Mm-hmm. Billy's a young buck surrounded by veterans, and although you yourself are quite accomplished in your own right, that's not a bad description of your own position within this cast.
Yeah.
Tell me a little, just briefly, if you could list off your other castmates, and tell me a bit about the relationship and the chemistry between you and your stage mates.
Well, we got Dick, who's played by Diego Matamoros, one of the greatest actors in Canada. Donnie, who's played by Oliver Dennis, one of the greatest actors in Canada. And Bug, who's played by Mike Hanrahan, who's one of the greatest actors in Canada. So, and then there's me. These guys, I know these guys really well. I've done quite a bit of work with them. Not as much as they've done with each other. I mean, they talk about things that were happening in the early 80s with each other. So, I mean, it's like coming on 30 years for these guys with each other. For me, it's more like 5 that I've been around them. And but they're not. They come along with this, they have a reputation of being great at what they do, and they are, but they don't see themselves necessarily that way. They don't, and if anything, that it gets skewed. It would be my take on that. It would be my seeing them as something that is unapproachable, and therefore would make me start acting strangely or trying to prove myself in some way. They have a humility that I don't know where it came from, but this sort of core of actors that work at Soulpepper and other theaters for that matter that are in this business, they have made a point to really work on their humility, so that I don't necessarily. I mean, I might have been nervous for the first read around the table with these guys, but very quickly it became a team that was just trying to get the job done. And that doesn't mean it didn't come with ups and downs, but it's a conundrum for a young actor, because you have to feel at ease. You have to feel, because that's where good acting comes from. I think it's not that it doesn't have energy, but there needs to be an ease in it. And if you're feeling like you're intimidated all the time or self-conscious because you're around these people that have these terrific track records, then that makes your work hard. Or I shouldn't say like as if I know everything. It makes my work harder. It makes that, if I put myself in that position, that makes my job more difficult. So, and they make it easy so that I don't have to feel that way by just being very welcoming and quite gracious and humble. So I owe them a lot of credit for being able to make young people feel that way, because they were there too. They get that, and that
sounds like they haven't forgotten it.
No, I don't think they haven't.
Yeah. Lee MacDougall has interwoven a vague sort of love story between some of the members of the heist, between Dick and Bug, and to a certain extent you and Donnie. It's kind of an unexpected and almost incongruous element to the piece. What do you think MacDougall was trying to do there? What was he trying to accomplish or say?
What we discovered in the research that we did was that there's an intimacy that these guys that have been in prison together have, that is a really interesting color of each of their characters that they have. I think Lee's trying to demonstrate how close these guys can be. I think in the case, and certainly the case between Bug and Dick, which are the two other guys, in the case of my character and Donnie, very simply, Billy is trying to overtake the operation. Mm-hmm. And he knows that he needs to get the weak dog on board and go from there. Without giving too much away, he also has kind of one game that he plays in order to get what he needs, and that's a sex game. And that's how he gets his fix all the time. It's the only game he really knows. He's being brought into this for that very reason, so that he can go and talk to a teller. So when it comes time to trying to get Donnie on board, he can sense that Donnie is somebody who, for the right reasons, would do anything that you asked him to, if it was going to get him what he needed. And so Billy tries to capitalize on that. And so it's not necessarily a statement that's being made, it's just what Billy is doing to survive.
Mm-hmm. The case of Dick and Bug seems a little more nuanced. And again, without giving anything away, there is a moment that that really, I think, shatters the image of their characters. How did, and obviously it's not your character, but you were probably there when they were, working around that.
Yeah.
How did they decide to approach that?
You're talking about the final scene?
Yes.
I don't.
Was there any discussion about how that moment would play out?
I think we all decided that we wanted to push that to see how far it would go before it was something that was too took us out of the thing. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there when they rehearsed it, so I can't really say how that moment went, but so I really don't know what to say about that. But I'm definitely, every time I see it and I watch them do it, I think how interesting it is and how quickly they laugh this moment off and get back to being who they were for the rest of the play as we've seen them. But I love it. I mean, I think that they there's a love there. There's a love they have for each other. There's a code. There's a love, and this is a moment in time where that manifested itself in a physical gesture, and
we're gonna have to leave it at that and let everyone listening come see the show for themselves.
Yeah, please do.
In addition to being an actor, you're also a very accomplished musical director, and I'll point out you I think one of the more notable things you did was The Misanthrope at Tarragon.
Oh, yeah.
A couple years, where you did Baroque covers of pop songs.
Yeah,
which, I know a lot of people were talking about. Do you prefer one job over the other?
No, I don't. Just as long as there's some sort of balance of both in my life, I'm really happy.
What are the pleasures of each?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just like anything. Like if you get, it's like kind of like having two jobs, two careers in a sense, and I'm not, doesn't mean I'm working twice the hours, but I flip back and forth between the two. And so I'm kind of refreshed when I come back to the other, which I really love. So right now I've been doing a long stretch of acting, and I will be for a while. But when I get back to the music thing, I'm very motivated to work on it because it's been a while, and it's a new, it's a new muscle that hasn't been worked in a while. So I'm excited to work it. But I'm very lucky to be able to do both things. And frankly, that in my career is one of the things that got me started, was that I was able to be the musician that can act, or the actor that can play music, and that's what got my foot in the door in a lot of these places that I've been working.
That was something you put to good use in Assassins.
Yeah, exactly. In Assassins, they were very specifically looking for acting instrumentalists. And a bunch, No Great Mischief, first play I did at Tarragon, was the same way. And then, a host of other shows I've done since then. So, it's definitely been a foot in the door and a way for me to meet people and get to know directors and other great actors and such.
On opening night of High Life, there was a medical emergency, in the audience. Now, fortunately, the audience member, at least according to Albert Schultz, is doing well and recovering.
Came to the opening of Long Day's Journey tonight, the very next night.
Really? Oh, fantastic! Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, when it actually happened, I mean, it was quite something. The lights went up. Albert Schultz was kind of running around behind the scenes, and you guys were, I think, just launching into to Act 2 or Scene 4.
Yeah.
And the lights came up, and your ASM came out and basically dragged you guys off the stage.
Yeah.
I still remember Diego's face. He just looked totally stunned.
Yeah.
Do incidents like that throw you off as an actor, or is that just part of the thrill of being in part of live theater, or maybe a bit of A and B?
It was an unusual moment. That's not something that happens very often. And I was sitting directly across from where the assistant stage manager entered to tell us, and so I saw her come out of the wings towards us on stage, and my brain kind of melted. Yeah, it had, in that particular play, the only drag of it was that it's a one act play. So it's an hour and 40 minutes without a medical emergency. And so you add a 15-minute long medical, and it makes for almost 2 hours in the same spot. That's a bit, by the end of it, I wondered whether or not, people had been sitting for a long time, Other than that, I'm just glad the guy's okay. We went backstage. We were in the wings talking about it. There's monitors, right, where we can see what's the stage, but because it's a wide-angle thing, you can also see some of the seats. So we could see what was happening. So we were watching, and we watched them carry the man out, a la hockey style, with arms over the, and and we were just glad to see that he was okay. And Diego even said that it loosened him up. He said afterwards, I was feeling kind of tight for the first 3 scenes, and then that break, and then going back there and starting it again. And it's live theater, like it's something that actually happened, and we all, it was a real present moment in the theater, and it's funny, like you do these things, and we all know that it's live, but at the same time, you're kind of trying to pretend that you're just watching these people and they don't know you're watching them. Like there's that strange pretending going on, and that's, Brecht tried to break some of that down, but it's still there. And then something like that happens. It's like when somebody forgets something. Is there anything more immediate in a show, in a line in a show, or somebody dries on stage and they're doing a monologue and they can't remember their next? Is there anything more exciting? Not necessarily in a good way, but it's so present, and it was one of those moments where suddenly everything was so incredibly alive. I thought, I hope our play is this exciting, when we get back to it. But
I mean, High Life is full of really dark moments and equally dark jokes. Were you ever afraid that incident would actually lose the audience?
There was a joke not long after that I kind of wondered. I felt it coming. It was Oliver Dennis plays a guy who is very sick all the time. He's in the hospital, kidneys problems, everything. And Dick said, if you were to go into the bank to talk to the teller, Donnie, no offense, but you look like you have about 2 days to live, they'd call an ambulance. And so as that joke was coming up, I was thinking to myself, how is this going to fly? Because clearly they would have called an ambulance for this gentleman, and and they did. But I don't know. We got by that point, maybe enough time had gone by, and people laughed at it, and I thought, okay, I think we're back here. Yeah. So, but it took some time to see, is how long is it going to take before we're just back to watching a play again, and the sort of jitters of that moment had worn off. But again, I'm just glad the gentleman's okay. Yeah.
What's next for you?
Well, I do this, and then I play a character named Ed in a play called You Can't Take It With You, and then I'm doing The Crucible.
And this is all with Soulpepper.
It's all with Soulpepper, yeah. And with Albert Schultz is directing, and Joe Ziegler is directing You Can't Take It With You. And then I'm playing Happy in Death of a Salesman in the fall. And, and that's the next, that takes me at the end of the year.
Sounds like you're busy, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. No, it's a great place to work. I'm very lucky to have a connection to a place like this. I mean, any theater company in Canada that I've ever worked has been awesome, and Soulpepper is just another one of those. And, they have a family sort of thing going on, which is my style of things. You know, I like being in one place. Some people, they need to shake things up, but for me personally,
especially if you like the people you work with,
yeah,
so much the better.
Yeah. And it's not all roses, you know. It's like any family. There's ups and downs, but I do like, you know, I got a baby now, so the idea of being in the city all the time is really appealing to me now more than ever. It always kind of has been. I've never been much of a traveler, but especially now, it's a great thing to have a gig. And I live in Leslieville, which is about 5 minutes from here, so it's great. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Sure, man. My pleasure. Yeah.